Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Before we take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper, we have a small announcement. Today at 8 p.m., our weekly live explained session will be back on our YouTube channel, and Sarmat sir would be holding an important discussion on the topic of electoral bonds. So do tune into our channel at 8 p.m. sharp to catch this session live. With this, let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at a column from page number 8 of the Delhi edition. In this column, the writer evaluates the contours of India-Bangladesh relationship to mark the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries in the context of Prime Minister Modi's high-profile visit to Bangladesh. See, this year also marks the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Bangladesh from Pakistan. And India happened to play a direct role in the liberation of Bangladesh war efforts. And it not only extended diplomatic and overt military support to the Bangladesh liberation movement, but reportedly, India had even extended covert support to help the Bengali nationalists liberate their country from the oppression and persecution of the Bengali minorities in East Pakistan that was being carried out by the Pakistani state, particularly the Pakistani army. By 1960s, it had become very clear that the Punjab-dominated West Pakistan would always continue to discriminate against the Bengali-dominated East Pakistan. So by 1960s, a political movement had already begun through which the Bengalis were seeking equal rights. And eventually, the Pakistani state did not hesitate to use force to target the Bengali leaders and the Bengali minorities who were fighting for their equal rights. By 1970s, the scale of violence in East Pakistan started going up, and on the 24th of March 1971, the Pakistani army launched Operation Searchlight in order to target the Bengali liberation movement which had already taken root in East Pakistan. Under Operation Searchlight, Pakistan committed gross violations of human rights, and it went on to commit nothing short of a genocide by randomly killing lakhs of Bengali civilians in what was clearly a targeted ethnic cleansing campaign. This large-scale state-sponsored targeted violence against the Bengali minorities created a refugee crisis in India's neighborhood, and scores of Bengali refugees, they started fleeing into India overnight. So as the Bengali refugees flooded Indian borders across West Bengal, Assam and other northeastern states, India was left to deal with a massive humanitarian crisis. And on moral grounds, India decided to take in the Bengali refugees and protect them, considering the close cultural, civilizational and familial links that India shared with the Bengali minorities of East Pakistan. At the same time, India saw this internal divide of Pakistan as a strategic opportunity, and it started extending support to the Bengali liberation movement through diplomatic, military and covert methods, which eventually directly contributed to the liberation of Bangladesh from Pakistan. Reportedly, the then Indira Gandhi government had authorized India's Research and Analysis Wing to back the Mukti Bahini rebels to lead India's covert war against Pakistan, and simultaneously, India started rallying diplomatic support, followed by making preparations for a full-fledged military assault if required. And as this Indian involvement in East Pakistan led to a full-blown-out war between India and Pakistan in December 1971, Indian armed forces not only played a direct role in liberating Bangladesh, but they also ended up contributing to the split up of Pakistan into two parts. Diplomatically, India had to withstand the pressure of the United States, considering that Pakistan had become a key ally of the US during the Cold War era. Following the hostile threats issued by the United States to India during this conflict, India was forced to abandon its non-alignment principle, and India chose to side with the Soviet Union by signing the historic Treaty of Peace and Friendship that brought Soviet Union to the assistance of India in case of any American pressure against India. Eventually, India achieved a decisive victory in this conflict, and India clearly dominated Pakistan in all the domains, including diplomatic, military, and covert warfare, and thus directly contributed to the liberation of Bangladesh. And India would become the first country to provide official diplomatic recognition to the new country that was born. While India was enabling the liberation of Bangladesh war, India started building contacts with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who was leading the liberation efforts. And as he became the first leader of the independent country and the founding father of Bangladesh, India started cultivating very close relations with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his political party, the Awami League. As a result, India enjoyed very close relations with Bangladesh until 1975, until the unfortunate assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman by his own soldiers, who were still loyal to the erstwhile state of Pakistan. Following his assassination, the Bangladeshi military took over, and for nearly 2 decades, Bangladesh came under military rule. While Bangladesh was under military rule, Pakistan's influence in the country increased again, and Bangladesh became hostile to India. And during this period, Bangladeshi soil was used to shelter several anti India outfits, especially Northeast insurgent groups, with the direct support of Pakistan's ISI. Hence, during this period, Bangladesh emerged as a major security threat for India because it had become a safe haven for these terrorist outfits, and several Northeast insurgent groups, such as ULFA, NSCN, NDFB, and the others, they had managed to set up their terror safe havens and terror sanctuaries in Bangladesh. Then finally, in 1991, Bangladesh again transitioned back into a parliamentary democracy, but this was again followed by a long period of volatility in the India-Bangladesh relations. Because a party known as the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, was seen to be aligned with Pakistani interests, and even the BNP government continued the hostile relationship of Bangladesh with India. For a short period between 96 and 2001, the Awami League came back to power under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina, the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. During this brief period, India's ties with Bangladesh had improved, but again the BNP came back to power. But India got a final and major breakthrough in 2009 following a constitutional crisis in Bangladesh. And in this round of elections, the Awami League won a conclusive mandate and Sheikh Hasina returned to Bangladesh as the Prime Minister of the country. This was a massive breakthrough for India in its relations with Bangladesh because since then, India's ties with Bangladesh has improved leaps and bounds, all thanks to the assistance and cooperation that has been extended by the Awami League government under Sheikh Hasina. As soon as she took over as the Prime Minister of the country in 2009, she immediately extended security and intelligence cooperation to India to address India's border security concerns, especially with regard to Northeast insurgency. Until then, the Bangladeshi border had become the most dangerous border for India with regard to infiltration, trafficking, organized crime, and as well as with regard to pumping of fake Indian currency notes into India. But due to the security cooperation extended by the Sheikh Hasina government, Indian and Bangladeshi security forces and agencies, they managed to crack down on the Northeast insurgent groups that were operating out of Bangladeshi soil. And in a very short span of time, the terror safe havens of these insurgent groups was destroyed. And most of the top leadership of these terrorist outfits were arrested and handed over to India. This eventually pushed many of these Northeast insurgent groups to negotiate a peace accord with India. And today, the NDFB has already surrendered and signed the Bodo Accord, the third Bodo Accord. And ULFA and NSCN and their factions are currently negotiating a peace accord with the Indian government. In return for this assistance on the security front, Sheikh Hasina's government expected a favor from India. Bangladesh wanted India to quickly resolve the land boundary issue, that is the enclave issue, and as well as the Teesta water dispute. The then Manmohan Singh government was more than willing to help out Bangladesh on these two issues, considering how cooperative Bangladesh was on the security front. But unfortunately, the Manmohan Singh government couldn't live up to these promises because of domestic politics and the pressure of coalition regional politics. And hence India failed to fulfill its commitments on the land boundary agreement and as well as on the Teesta water agreement. But eventually in 2015, the enclave issue was permanently resolved with the signing of the land boundary agreement and with the adoption of a constitutional amendment. And this resolution of the enclave issue was seen as a major breakthrough in the relationship. See, the enclave issue is a byproduct of the colonial mistakes that were committed during partition. And due to the haphazard ad hoc process of partition, several small enclaves or islands of territories were left behind in each other's countries on the other side of the border. If you look at this map, you can look at small islands, small orange colored patches over here, located across the border in Bangladesh, and these were essentially Indian territories. Similarly, you can also identify small patches of green territories or green colored enclaves, which are located on the Indian side of the border, but they were essentially Bangladeshi territories. The only practical way in which this land issue could have been resolved was by exchanging these enclaves, because redrawing the boundary was not a practical suggestion, and hence, to resolve this land boundary dispute and provide for the exchange of these enclaves, a land boundary agreement was essential. And as per the Indian Constitution, this required a constitutional amendment because, in net terms, India was supposed to cede a part of its territory to Bangladesh in order to provide for the exchange of these enclaves. The then Manmohan Singh government couldn't get the constitutional amendment through the parliament because it was a coalition government and it didn't have sufficient numbers on its own in the parliament to get the special majority that was required. The then opposition parties and other coalition partners, they played domestic politics and derailed the land boundary agreement. But eventually in 2015, the Modi government, which was a majority government, managed to get the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act enacted by the parliament, thereby providing for the exchange of these enclaves between India and Bangladesh. In the following years, as per the terms of the land boundary agreement, both India and Bangladesh have exchanged these territories. And for the people who were residing in these enclaves, both the countries decided to adopt a very flexible approach towards citizenship so that the people could opt for the citizenship of either of the countries in the larger interests of their well-being. Because for decades together, the people residing in these enclaves, they were completely deprived of development as their respective governments couldn't reach out to them due to the jurisdictional issues. But with the signing of the land boundary agreement under the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act, the enclave issue was completely resolved, and this led to significant improvement in the India-Bangladesh relations. Then even with regard to trade, India's ties with Bangladesh has improved significantly under the Sheikh Hasina government, and today India's largest trading partner in South Asia happens to be Bangladesh. But however, trade between the two countries is still affected due to non-tariff barriers from the Indian side, which includes the lack of border trading infrastructure, strict immigration laws, and the absence of relaxed border control measures. Then India has also become a key development partner for Bangladesh, and it has announced 3 line of credits. Under the first line of credit, Bangladesh has already utilized around 51% of it, that is around $800 million, to fund several development projects, including the creation of essential infrastructure. But however, the other 2 line of credits, they still remain unused. And out of the total $8 billion of line of credit that India has announced, Bangladesh is yet to utilize around $6.5 billion. The partial success of these line of credits is attributed to red tapeism or slow decision making on the Indian side, and as well as to the slow execution of projects on the Bangladeshi side. But however, tourism, especially medical tourism, has really taken off between the two countries. And today, nearly 50% of India's revenue from medical tourism comes from Bangladesh. The next major area of focus between India and Bangladesh is connectivity projects. And cooperation in this field spans across road connectivity, rail connectivity, and as well as inland navigation. See, India's biggest weakness in the region happens to be the Siliguri corridor, or the chicken's neck of India, which is a narrow land corridor surrounded by international borders that is the sole connection between mainland India and the northeast of India. The Siliguri corridor is not only a strategic choke point for India, but it has also hampered connectivity and trade with the northeastern states. In this regard, Bangladesh is very crucial for providing better connectivity to the northeastern states, but the previous Bangladeshi governments were not ready to provide transit access to India. But under the Sheikh Hasina government, India and Bangladesh have taken up several connectivity projects, including the opening up of road and railway routes that directly connects Kolkata with northeastern cities, thereby giving a big boost to trade and connectivity and enabling India to bypass its strategic weakness over the Siliguri corridor. So today, India and Bangladesh have already operationalized several direct road routes and as well as passenger and freight railway networks that connects mainland India with northeast of India via Bangladesh. Similarly, India and Bangladesh are also looking to connect their inland waterways, that is inland navigation systems. And India's ambition is to connect the port of Kolkata and other eastern ports of India with the Mongla port and Chittagong or Chittagong port of Bangladesh via the sea route. And from here to transport the goods through inland waterways over the Meghna river system, which further connects with the Ganga and the Brahmaputra river systems of India, to directly connect with important trading points such as Davki in Meghalaya, Sutarkandi in Assam, Agartala in Tripura, and at all these locations, India has set up integrated checkposts along with the checkpost at Petropol in West Bengal, which happens to be the largest land trading point in Asia. So through such trade and connectivity initiatives, India and Bangladesh have come really closer. But despite this, there are several long-standing issues that need the attention of both the governments. Despite this exponential improvement in the relations, there are still many unresolved issues which could affect the relationship. For example, the Teesta water dispute is yet to be resolved, and this river, which originates in Sikkim, flows through West Bengal and then into Bangladesh, is seen as a lifeline in Bangladesh. But the politicization of the issue in West Bengal by regional political parties has prevented the Indian government from signing the Teesta Water Accord with Bangladesh. And India, being the bigger neighbor, will have to extend a greater amount of generosity to help out Bangladesh on the Teesta water issue. Even though the central government is ready to do it, the politicization of the issue in West Bengal has prevented the center, and this is one long-standing issue that needs to be resolved immediately. Similarly, there are several other water-related disputes between India and Bangladesh, as the two countries share a number of transboundary rivers. We have the Tipaimukh Dam dispute over the Barak River in the northeast. Then we have a dispute over the sharing of waters of the Feni River in Tripura. And there is a long-standing dispute over the operations of Farakka barrage on the Hooghly River. So in the larger interest of maintaining good ties with Bangladesh, India will have to display a bigger heart and ensure that these water disputes are resolved as soon as possible, in order to ensure that these long pending issues doesn't end up derailing this special relationship. The next issue that India needs to address immediately is the increasing incidents of border shootings by the BSF along the India-Bangladesh border. See, even though the extent of infiltration and illegal migration has gone down along the border, organized crime still continues to remain prevalent, especially trafficking of arms and weapons, and as well as cattle smuggling. Every now and then, India's border guarding force, the BSF, tends to open fire, killing a number of Bangladeshis. And these border shooting incidents end up turning into a diplomatic dispute between India and Bangladesh. This is yet another issue that can be easily resolved through talks and negotiations. And shooting the culprits is not the only way for the BSF to be dealing with this organized crime. So as per the law of the land, a legal mechanism can be worked out to deal with such incidents in order to prevent the flare-up of these issues into a major diplomatic issue. Next, India should also pay attention to the negative impact of its policies, because its internal issues such as the NRC and the CAA have ended up having an impact in Bangladesh. The National Register of Citizens that has been carried out in Assam is primarily designed to identify Indian citizens and distinguish them from the illegal Bangladeshis who have entered the state over the decades. The Citizenship Amendment Act has also become controversial, as it directly blames Bangladesh for promoting religious persecution of religious minorities. And within Bangladesh, both these internal policies and laws of India, they have been perceived to be anti-Muslim, targeted against the Bangladeshi citizens. So while dealing with these internal policies of India, India will have to keep in mind the impact of these policies on India's external relations. And there is a widespread feeling in the region that these policies are designed to target Bangladeshi Muslims in particular. It's very essential for India to address these long-standing issues as soon as possible, because it needs to keep in mind that China's influence in South Asia is growing day by day, be it Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, or Maldives. In all these countries where India was seen as a traditional power, China is quickly replacing India through its checkbook diplomacy. There is no doubt that China enjoys deeper pockets than India, and it has been offering attractive investments to these countries in trade, infrastructure, and defense. And these countries have already agreed to be a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. So, keeping all these factors in mind, India will have to bring back its focus on the neighborhood first policy and give utmost priority to Bangladesh and ensure that the pending issues are addressed as soon as possible in order to further boost their bilateral relationship following the celebration of 50th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. Now let's take up an editorial from page number 8 which evaluates India's progress with regard to its COVID-19 vaccination program. The editorial praises India's ongoing vaccination program, but however, it calls upon India to plug the shortcomings in the current program in order to scale up and accelerate the daily vaccination rate, considering that the country is already in the middle of an emerging second wave. See, India rolled out its COVID-19 vaccination program in January, and under phase 1, the frontline workers were made eligible. Then slowly it was expanded under phase 2 to cover all senior citizens above the age of 60 years. And it was even extended to those above 45 years with the condition that they should be suffering from a list of comorbid conditions. See, we already know that the presence of comorbid conditions presents a greater risk as far as COVID-19 is concerned. But however, using this as an eligibility criteria in the vaccination program was actually restricting the reach of the vaccination program. Because under this eligibility criteria, for those above 45 years to be eligible, they should have a list of 10 comorbid conditions, and they would have to prove that by providing a health certificate, which in itself had become an entry barrier. See, because the backbone of India's vaccination program is the COVID mobile application, on which the people will have to register, provide the required documents, including their health certificates. Now, this strict restrictive criteria was preventing a number of people from signing up for the vaccination program, and plus, it had failed to take into account that the poor people, and especially those in the rural areas, they may not even be aware of their comorbid conditions, thereby automatically excluding them from the vaccination program. But fortunately, the government has realized that this restriction was becoming an entry barrier, and it has quickly rolled out the third phase of its vaccination program, under which the program has been opened up for all those who are above 45 years without any restrictions from the 1st of April. So this usage of age-based criteria, just like the UK model, has been appreciated by the editorial because it allows India to significantly expand the coverage of its vaccination program. Now, this is extremely crucial because any vaccine is known to promote health equity by providing for equitable healthcare irrespective of one's class, caste, or religion. This is all the more important considering that we are in the middle of a pandemic, that too in the middle of a fast rising second wave of infections. Initially, India's vaccination program was progressing very slowly, largely because of vaccine hesitancy that was prevalent amongst the population, and this was directly responsible for the low uptake of vaccines. And this, accompanied with the lack of awareness about vaccine safety, had ended up restricting the expansion of India's vaccination program. But over the last few weeks, vaccine hesitancy has been declining, largely due to improved awareness amongst the public. And as of 24th March, India had administered around 50.23 million doses, making it one of the top countries with regard to the number of doses being administered under its vaccination program. But however, considering India's vast population, this target is simply not enough because on a per capita basis, this amounts to just 4 doses being administered per 100 people. So at this rate, India's vaccination program would be very slow compared to other countries. And hence, it's very essential to accelerate the vaccination program by even roping in the private hospitals, which currently seem to be very reluctant to play a proactive role in the vaccination program. The editorial says that India has sufficient expertise in rolling out vaccines through its universal immunization program, and it needs to leverage this expertise and its existing resources to further expand the coverage of the COVID-19 vaccination program. For this, what we need is a display of political will by laying down clear-cut targets with specific deadlines, along with the promotion of awareness amongst the public. And there is also a need to reduce our over-dependency on the COVID application, because this has made the vaccination program more passive. Because right now, the people have to take the initiative to register themselves on the application and then sign up for the vaccination program. Now, this is clearly a hindrance because it would prevent the otherwise eligible and interested beneficiaries, and hence there is a need to open up the vaccination program even to walk-ins at the vaccination sites and make it a more active vaccination program based on outreach, where the vaccinators reach out to the population through micro-planning strategies based on local context and local circumstances. Next, on page number 16, we have an article in which the governor of RBI paints a picture of the ongoing recovery in the Indian economy. See, last year this time around, the pandemic and the lockdown came as a shock to the Indian economy. And as the country and the world were largely unprepared, it led to a drastic fall in economic growth and economic activities. But the RBI governor feels that this time around, it is unlikely to be a repeat of last year, and he has estimated that India's GDP for the financial year 2022 could stand at 10.5%. Even though India is currently in the middle of an ongoing second wave, the RBI governor feels that it's unlikely to have the same impact as last year because one, the vaccine program is being rolled out and close to 5 crore Indians have already been vaccinated. And two, the general population is more aware about COVID-19 protocols. And even though it appears that people have let down their guard due to the fatigue of following the social distancing protocols, the population is likely to be better prepared to deal with a second wave. And as the cases start to surge, the people would be expected to adopt the measures again. And this time around, there would be better compliance on their part. Plus, the ongoing second wave and the emergence of several new variants is unlikely to lead to a complete lockdown like last year. And instead, governments should be looking at localized lockdowns depending on the case surge. So all these factors are likely to act as an insurance for the economy. And in this context, the RBI governor has said that the central bank is committed to deploy all its policy tools to aid the robust recovery of the economy following the pandemic. The RBI has also stated that it is looking to efficiently manage government borrowings because of late, the sudden surge in bond yield has affected macroeconomic stability, especially in the equity markets. So the RBI governor has said that the rise in the bond yield curve should be in an orderly manner, and any sudden spikes will have to be effectively managed by the RBI through the management of government borrowings. Now finally, let's look at a couple of mains practice questions. The first question, evaluate the long-standing issues in the India-Bangladesh relationship. The second question, examine the need for India to accelerate its COVID-19 vaccination program considering the rise of second wave of infections. Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the comment section below. So this concludes our discussion for today. Thanks for watching.